Yo, Joe!
Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. As you can see, the figure is already out of the box. I kinda, it's a figure I was or character I was excited to get. So I took her out just to play around with it and, get some first impressions before recording. But a quick look at the box here, what we saw with Torch and Nagahide, depending on when this video goes up. There's the back, skills and abilities, name, few zoom in shots of the figure, nice diorama kind of pic here with Jinx. Not so great portrait. I'm not a big fan of this portrait. And then you get the number, but yeah, I don't like the face on this portrait at all. Would have been nicer if they added some more elements of her, like the blindfold and whatnot, but there's the packaging. One thing I forgot to mention with Torch, or in a retrospection box video that I made, also I don't know when that will go up, but you have this whole tab system to help you remove the figure. I just thought I'd mention that real quick. But with that being said, we have our retro or vintage version of Jinx here. But with that being said, let's look at the accessories that classified Jinx comes with. Alright, so out of the packaging, we do have her two fists, as well as her unmasked head sculpt, which is looking pretty nice, and we'll go into further depth in that head sculpt and compare it with the masked one. She does come with her blindfold, and I figured the best way to get it on her head sculpt here is by going from underneath rather than the top. It is kind of a pliable material, very like stretchy kind of thing, but I still figured it's best to put it through the bottom of the head sculpt and just do it this way. Just because I don't know the tolerance with this blindfold, so I figured it'd just be best that way. And there you go, eyes covered, and now you can have a blindfolded Jinx as such. And yeah, you can see how rubbery it is, and I think the G.I.Joe team mentioned about messing around with different tolerances for the plastic, but that's the best way I figured to put it on her. Through the top it seems a little more difficult because of that hair, but yeah, there's a quick tip for you. She also comes with the mask head sculpt, as I mentioned earlier, and two other pair of hands with a more gripping sort of trigger finger kind of hands. But yeah, those are definitely gripping hands for her other accessories. She comes with a double-sided sort of axe blade thing. I know there's a proper term for it, but I'm not too well educated on martial arts weaponry or blades or swords. But yeah, you have some nice texturing here, sort of brown paint there, just a flat black for the handle, and then nice silver for the blades up here. I will say the material isn't too flimsy. There is some bend to it, but it doesn't feel like super floppy. And oops, I dropped it. And there goes Retro Jinx. But the tips over here aren't like super pliable either, like we would have seen with some other blades or whatever. Pretty sturdy, so I'm pretty happy to see that they're changing their plastic sturdiness with these newer releases. And lastly, we do have a sword and sheath, which we have seen before. As you can see here, the plastic for this one is more pliable, but for the most part, out of the packaging, it's pretty straight. There's no warping going on. You can see different texturing on there. And the sword also has some nice texturing and paint. Hey, excuse me, had to do a silent burp. But yeah, you have a nice silver blade there, and it does sheath in as such. But as I said, this is reuse from the Snake Eyes, or movie Snake Eyes sword. As you can see there, this one had the added paint because it was more movie accurate. It had that yellow on the sheath, and they didn't bother painting this one. It would have been nice to at least have some red or something. But yeah, Same sword, same sheath, we reused from this Snake Eyes, which, by the way, is a great figure. Taking a closer look at details here on the body, because this is a fairly new, this is all new tooling and new body sculpt and everything, which is nice to see. We have these new forearm pieces. They are glued, so if you were to remove these and probably heat this up and try to remove it, you could, but it is just a sort of, I can't think of the word, but it just goes over the forearm, possibly for future releases of future female characters that will use this forearm. They can swap out the forearm piece, and that's just a clever reuse right there. New hands, new torso, new legs and feet for the most part from what I can see, so that is very nice. You have her tattoos here, which is very nice. You have some pink there, just to give it some extra color, which is nice. You have this not collar, or I guess maybe it's more of a necklace thing. Mine was way up here. You can shift it down to be lower down here. I think that's how it's meant to go. But there's that tiniest of necklaces there. You have a nice dragon here, which is kind of similar to our vintage one, and I will do a different comparison video comparing our vintage to the classified. Now looking at our head sculpts here, let's see if the eyes more or less look like the same person. I think for the most part they nailed it. Same eye color. I think that's believable as the same person under the mask, which is nice to see. One thing I noticed is that there isn't a lot of texturing on the body itself. Obviously it could all be like a different fabric, but compared to the previous sort of ninja female body we have from also the Snake Eyes movie, the Akiko body, you can see all the different texturing going through it, which was pretty nice, I think. We don't get much of that here, but again, like I said, this could just be different material for her outfit and whatnot, so it doesn't really bother me, and from a distance you're not going to notice that either. But I think that mostly does it for details. You will notice there is a difference in red from up here and down here compared to the knees, which is something we've been seeing a lot, not just in Classified but Marvel Legends as well, which is a bit of a shame. I hope they're able to fix that and get more matching colors going from up here into the knee and back down here. That's mostly everything I can think about in terms of details. Everything's sculpted nicely. This is very rubbery as well, very flimsy, as well as the head sculpt, which I don't know how long this will last, once you pose it around and whatnot. I feel like that might just tear over time, but only time will tell. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the body mold. But the articulation is something to be desired, so let's go ahead and go into that segment. As I mentioned, articulation is something to be desired here. Head sculpt wise, it gets a little bit up, not the greatest, but it's manageable, it's okay. Looking down is okay, and head tilting, you have your head tilting. I think it's the same for this head sculpt, but if you guys want to see that anyways, I think you might be able to get a little more up, looking up, and a little more down, and then you have that pivoting or tilting there, which is nice. You have butterfly joints here. Going forward isn't too great, but going back you get a little bit more, as you can see there. And on this side, everything is smooth for the most part. Arms go out, perfect T-pose there. You have your bicep swivel, you have your double jointed arms for a female figure, which is always nice. I thought there was a forearm rotation, but it's not. Like I said, this is just an overlay piece, so they can later swap out in case they need to reuse this mold. All your hands are going to be vertical hinges, so they all hinge up and down. Even your fists have that similar system, which is kind of awkward seeing fists going up and down. I don't think we've seen that yet here in the Classified, but there's that. We'll come back to the torso in a minute. Kicking forward is pretty good. Kicking out is pretty good. You do have the drop down hips. You have your upper thigh cut. Double jointed knees, which is pretty good. I mean, a decent amount. She can't kick her butt, but that's pretty good for me. You have the upper sort of calf swivel here, which is very nice. Feet go back, forward, and then you have your ankle pivot, which is very nice. Now, torso wise, I'm very disappointed. Back, you don't get too much. You can get her to tilt a little bit here, but even then, it's not too much. And going forward, that's just not enough. At least for me, that's not enough forward crunch, even with the lower ball joint down there. So I may do a little bit of modification on Jinx here, removing some of that plastic around the ball joints, and see if I can get better forward range. Because this, to me, does not do it. It's pretty stiff. There's no mobility there, especially for a ninja who's going to be crunching crunching forward and lunging forward and whatnot. So that is very disappointing to me. I hope, and I do hope, the Hasbro, both the G.I.Joe team and the Marvel Legends team can find a good way to make ball joints useful. Because so far, a lot of the ball joints are pretty useless and they don't give you a lot of range in the classified series and even Marvel Legends. And it's just a shame because, you know, ball joints can get a lot of range, but the way they're doing it is they just fill it up with too much plastic around, and it gives you no mobility whatsoever. So that's my quick little rant about articulation and whatnot. I will say I think I'm gonna go with the mask head sculpt. Yeah, this one's fine. It's whatever. I never liked her unmasked look. I always preferred this, and our retro one had the masked look. So yeah, I just prefer the masked. It just fits better. Would have been cool if we had an extra neck piece just to cover the skin tone, but this works for me too. Kind of wish this was a separate, you know, kind of piece, sort of how they did with what is it, Kamakura and Storm Shadow, where it had a ball joint and you just connect it to a belt. Would have been nice to have that for this head sculpt. But yeah, I think that's everything to go through with this Jinx. So that pretty much does it for my review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Like I said, I think the torso articulation really brings down the figure for me. As you all know, I like to pose my action figures, and being limited in that range, pretty disappointing to me. But overall, I like the look of the character. I like the few redesigns that they went with. Overall, yeah, it looks great. But yeah, that torso articulation really kills it for me. The red, you can see, is much duller than our vintage one, so maybe in the future when they do a retro packaging for her, they can do a much brighter red. That would be nice to see. But yeah, that mostly does it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in a future video.